Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be doing another episode of the Complete Marvel Rivals Guide. My name is Kearless, and if you don't know me already, I am a 2-time Peak Eternity player and continue to play this game to this very day. It's nice to meet you. This is the Complete Marvel Rivals Guide. It is a series where I will be posting every single day going over high-level concepts that you should be utilizing in your own games if you want to improve. My overall goal with this series is to help a ton of people to achieve their peak ranks. And without any further ado, let's get into it. On screen now, I'm going to put up the complete lesson guide, so if you guys ever wanted to choose a lesson that you're not super comfortable on, I'm going to put that on screen now so you can go ahead and pick one. So in the last lesson, we talked about predictive play, and that's where we learned how to anticipate what the enemy wants to do. And today we're going to be talking about initiative, which takes it one step further, and instead of predicting their next move, you force them to respond to yours. So you might be asking, what is initiative? And initiative is the ability to make the first meaningful move and force the enemy to respond. So when you have initiative, you dictate the pace, you choose when the pressure starts, and the enemy has to solve the problem you're creating. So the initiative puts you in control of the question, and then the enemy has to find the answer. But if you throw the question at them, you pretty much already know the answer, and we're gonna get a little bit into that more later. So creating initiative is actually relatively simple. You can take initiative by taking an aggressive angle or engaging first, or pressing the important target, taking the important space, forcing the enemy cooldowns, or just starting a rotation before the enemy actually does anything. So it doesn't necessarily mean attacking first, it's about doing something that demands a response. So imagine there's a Spider-Man and it appears behind your Luna Snow, and he doesn't even attack yet, but the Luna actually turns around, she backs up, and her other strategist looks at the Spider-Man, and then maybe the Groot even turns around too. So that Spider-Man's presence just forced out several single reactions, and that's initiative. So now your team can now capitalize on those reactions from the enemy team. So there's a difference between initiative and over-aggression, and this distinction is like super important, so please listen up. Having initiative does not mean run at the enemy before they run at us. No, it means good initiative creates a problem without unnecessarily throwing away your resources. So if you engage first and then instantly die, you didn't create any useful initiative, you just gave the enemy team an advantage. And now maintaining the initiative is like, once the enemy reacts, keep making them solve the problems, like I talked about before. So an example is like you take high ground and then the enemy rotates so that they can contest, and then you move to the off angle, and now the enemy turns and runs towards you, and then your teammate attacks from main. So they're constantly reacting to the many different angles. And initiative doesn't always mean getting a kill either. This is important because when players hear like take initiative, they might think, oh, I need to kill somebody first before the enemy team does. No, you actually don't. Sometimes taking initiative simply means forcing the enemy to make a decision. So like taking high ground forces them to contest you, or taking an off angle forces someone to look at you, or just walking forward with your vanguard forces them to give up space, or threatening their strategist, and that will force them to reposition, or even just simply controlling a choke, and that forces them into another route. So you haven't necessarily killed anyone, but you've already changed how the enemy has to play. And you can take initiative before the fight even begins. So imagine you're playing Punisher, and then you rotate early and establish the powerful high ground angle. And now when the enemy arrives, they can't simply execute their original plan because you're already controlling the important sightline. So either they have to contest you, avoid you, use resources against you, or just take a different route. And your positioning created initiative without you needing to even engage. So this connects directly back to like positioning, angles, space control, and rotations. And I feel like this is kind of the point where all of those concepts kind of come together. And if you are still struggling with those, go back and watch the video because those will help a lot. So I want you to think back to lesson 11 when we talked about cooldown economy, and sometimes you take the initiative by forcing out an important ability. So like for example, if You pressure the Luna Snow and then she uses her defensive cooldown, and then you back away and you didn't get the elimination, but now you've changed the fight for the next few seconds because the Luna Snow has fewer options. So now your team can decide when to attack. So sometimes forcing the response is way more valuable than even forcing a kill or a trade. And it's important to mention that initiative isn't permanent. So one team might control the beginning of the fight and then suddenly lose control, and now the enemy team has it. So like, for example, if the enemy Venom dives your backline, initially the enemy has the initiative. You know, you're responding to the Venom. But when your team immediately turns and forces the Venom out to retreat, now his mobility is gone, and now your tanks can walk forward if your DPS, like, you know, they take an angle. And then suddenly, because they don't have cooldowns and your team does, your team has the initiative. So you went from defending their play to now creating your own. And then this is something players should start asking during the fights, is like, who is reacting to who? So if you're constantly like backing away and using defensive cooldowns or giving up position, responding to dives, or even abandoning your angles, then the enemy probably has the initiative. But if they're doing those things because of you, then you probably have the initiative. This ties into so many other lessons that you can go back and watch over. But one major one that you might want to look over is tempo. And this gives you another way to like read the state of the fight by deciding who is moving back and who is moving forward. So when you've lost the initiative, sometimes you need to recognize that they have control of the fight right now, and that's okay. You don't need to desperately try to force it back. So like, if the enemy uses 2 ultimates and your team is backing up, trying to immediately counterattack makes things much worse. Instead, you should pull back, survive, let their like ults expire, and then you should look for an opportunity to retake the initiative. And this connects directly back to the push and pull concept from Tempo, which is super important in this episode as well. So now we're going to talk about initiative and team composition and how they go together. So different team compositions create initiative differently. So dive is initiative comes from the threatening on the backline, their coordinated engagements, and creating multiple threats simultaneously. So like, if the Venom goes in, the enemy turns to the Venom, and then the DPS follows. So now the dive team controls the space. And it's a little bit different for Brawl. So Brawl, the initiative comes from walking forward, controlling the close range space, and forcing the enemy backwards. So the threat is pretty much, if you stay here, we're gonna pretty much run you over. And Poke kind of has a different toll, where Poke is kind of initiative, but they never really fully engage. They establish the sight lines, they take angles, deal pressure, force enemies into cover, and just burn out the enemy's resources. And eventually the enemy is forced to make a move. That's still initiative. It might not seem like it because they're not fully engaging, but that is still initiative. There's also like the psychological element. So this ties into like initiative and confidence. And when one team controls several fights in a row, the other team often becomes more hesitant, you know, like players start to wait too long, giving up space. They kind of second guess the engages, they play overly defensive, and that creates even more opportunities for the team with the initiative. But I want you guys to kind of be careful with this information, because confidence really isn't the same as recklessness, and you still need to respect the enemy's threats, especially when you're playing at the higher level. So now we're going to go into the initiative cycle. So this kind of starts with like creating the threat and forcing the reaction out of the enemy, and then the enemy spends resources and kind of changes their position, and you recognize their response, and then you create the next threat, and it kind of repeats from there. So that's what's controlling the pace of the fight, and that's what it kind of actually looks like. So you're not just mindlessly attacking the enemy, but you're creating a problem and then watching how the enemy solves it, and then creating another problem based on their response. And that ties together with predictive play, adaptation, and pretty much like pressure and cooldown economy, and it kind of all goes into initiative. And you don't want to give the enemy enough time to play the fight they wanted to play. You want to force them into the position that they don't want to play. But there is a limit to how many things a player can react to at once, and that's exactly why we're covering attention management in the next video, so be sure to check that one out. Alright, I haven't seen anybody say that they really liked when I do like the homework, the questions, or just like you know, the things to ask yourself, the kind of like big three that I add at the end of the video. It's like the coach's corner, the homework, questions to ask yourself, and then like common mistakes. I haven't seen anybody say from the last video that they want those in the video, and it's a lot easier for me to just go through my kind of script outline that I have and not put those in. So unless you guys want them back in, and you guys can totally send a comment, unless you guys want those back in, I'm gonna be doing it like this. I will put the homework in the description of the video just so you guys know, but I'm not really gonna be talking about it. And if you have any questions, yeah, just let me know in the comments below. I'm still working on other videos. I'm sorry that I've been behind a little bit. College is starting up, so things are getting a little hectic. I still want to leave time for my friends because, you know, obviously I still want to have a social life and everything. But yeah, I think that's about it. I am going to be doing an unranked to either GM or Celestial. I don't know, because I'm also thinking about doing kind of like a Nuzlocke, which is like if you lose a game with that character, then you can't use you can't use that character for the rest of the time. So I'm debating whether or not I want to do that for like GM, or if I think I can do that for Celestial, because there's like 50 something characters in Marvel Rivals. So yeah, anyways, if you guys want to see that, or if you guys just want to see regular gameplay, I might do both later on, who knows. Yeah, I might start with one and then do the other one. That's probably what I'm gonna do, but just let me know what you guys want to see in the comments. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate all the love and support. You guys do like mean a lot to me, and I'm really glad that I'm like doing this. So yeah, thank you guys so much. If you liked the video, please drop a like, comment, and subscribe. Feel free to reach out to me, whether on Discord if you have any questions, or in the YouTube comments. And yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.